Boris Godunov, Russian tragic grand opera founded on Pushkin and Karamzin's historical drama Boris Godunov. Both music and book by Modest Petrovich Mussorgsky. First production, St. Petersburg, 1874. The scene is partly in the palace of the Kremlin, Moscow, and partly on the borders of Poland. The time is from 1598 to 1605. Characters: Boris Godunov, Tsar of Russia, baritone. Fyodor and Zhenya, his children, mezzo-soprano and soprano, respectively. Prince Shuisky, tenor. Pimen, monk and chronicler, bass. The pretender Dmitri, called Gregory, tenor. Rangoni, a Jesuit priest, bass. Marina, beloved of Gregory, mezzo-soprano. A nurse, the clerk of the Duma, an innkeeper, an idiot, a constable, Jesuit priests, pilgrims, vagabonds, courtiers, nobles, peasants, Polish lords and ladies, women, young girls, and children. Prologue. Boris Godunov, the regent guardian of the children of Ivan the Terrible, has upon the death of the elder prince murdered the younger Dmitri, that he himself may obtain the throne. In the courtyard of a monastery near Moscow, the people are assembled, and he is acclaimed as king, although there is some dissension and misgiving. Soon in the Kremlin, his coronation takes place amid the plaudits of the people. There is no evidence that his crime is known. Act 1. It is night in a lonely cell in the monastery of the Miracle. Pimen is writing by the light of a lamp a history of Russia, with the high ideal of telling the truth so that God can look upon it unashamed. Gregory, a lad of much spirit and of the age and appearance of the murdered Prince Dmitri, lies asleep in the cell. Suddenly Gregory awakes from a dream of power, and Pimen tells him that the present king is a regicide and that the boy who should be Tsar was about Gregory's age. Gregory, impressed with the story, exclaims that, though no man dare accuse the king, yet the obscure monk has recorded the tale, and God will judge. Some years later, when Gregory, disguised and attended by two monks as valets, is passing an inn on the Lithuanian border, he is accosted by the police, who are watching for a certain Gregory who has escaped from a monastery. The Tsar has ordered that he be arrested and hanged as a thief and a heretic. Gregory barely escapes across the border. Act 2. In the apartments of the Tsar at the Kremlin, Zhenya is weeping over the portrait of her lover, who has died, while her brother, Fyodor, sits reading. Boris enters, and dismissing Zhenya with comforting words, commends his son's learning. Soon he dismisses him and sits alone, brooding remorsefully and anxiously over his misfortunes. The nobles are plotting against him, and a revolt of the Poles is brewing. Prince Shuisky, who was responsible for the carrying out of the murder of Prince Dmitri, comes seeking audience with the king. Admitted by Boris, who is repelled and made greatly suspicious by his friendly greeting, he tells of the rise of a pretender to the throne coming out of Poland, whom the nobles and the Pope acclaim. Boris, greatly alarmed for fear the pretender is indeed the lawful heir to the throne, asks Shuisky if he really did carry out his commands and have the child murdered. Shuisky then relates in horrible detail the death of the prince. Boris, overcome with remorse and fear, dismisses the noble. Act 3. In the apartment of Marina Nitschek at Sandomir, a Jesuit priest succeeds by dire threats in converting her to the Romish Church, in order that she may use her influence with Gregory in its behalf. Later, in the garden of her father's castle, by moonlight, the false Dmitri is met by the priest, who strives to kindle his passion for Marina. They both hide as Marina and a party of nobles come out, so Dmitri overhears the plots for the overthrow of Boris. Later, when he and Marina are together, she spurs him on, kindling his ambition to hasten at once to Moscow and to claim the throne. Act 4. Near Kram, there is an uprising of the peasants against the nobles and the Tsar. The crime of Boris is the talk of all the people, and his death is plotted. The false Dmitri appears with his troops, and they acclaim him king. But an idiot, watching the crowd, prophesies woe to the Russian people. In the palace of the Kremlin, the Duma of the nobles is holding a special session. They are plotting the downfall of the pretender and the crushing of his rebellion. Shuisky enters and brings sad news of the Tsar, who seems to be haunted by a spectre. While he is yet speaking, Boris enters, babbling in delirium. What voice said, "Thou murderer"? No murderer I, and as accusing Shuisky, Boris comes to himself and takes his seat. An old monk begs audience with the Tsar and is admitted. Pimen enters and tells the story of a miracle in which the spirit of Prince Dmitri appeared to an old shepherd and told him that he would cure him of his blindness, which was done immediately the man had made a pilgrimage to the tomb of the prince. As the story ends, Boris falls unconscious, but, recovering, gives farewell advice to his son, the heir apparent, and dies.